Hey guys, what's up? It is Pastor Todd with your 2-minute devotion for today, Friday edition. So today we're going to finish up in Joshua chapter 3, and I hope you've loved this chapter because it's really cool, but it's going to get better. So remember, we left off with the people of Israel headed toward the promised land, Jericho, and now they've come to the Jordan River and it's overflowing. They can't get around it. They can't go over it, so they're going to have to go through it. And I love what God does here. I love the way God handles this because it's so much different than what God did 40 or so years ago with Moses. Remember the story of Moses? God's people were enslaved in Egypt. God sent 10 plagues on Egypt to change Pharaoh's heart. Pharaoh won't let him go until the last plague, which is the plague of the death of the firstborn son, which kills Pharaoh's son. And that breaks Pharaoh's heart. And Pharaoh's fine, like Moses, fine, take your people and just get out, go, leave. But then Pharaoh has a change of mind and he starts to send his army to chase down the people of Israel. And there's a lot of people of Israel and they're unarmed. If Pharaoh's army catches them, they're going to be killed. So I love what God does. Remember what God does? He becomes a pillar of fire that it surrounds the people of Israel and will not let the Egyptians get close to them. So as they're walking, they come to the Red Sea. And remember the story, Moses just holds up his staff and the Bible literally says a mighty wind blew through and it parted the Red Sea immediately. Boom, there it is, parted. And they walk through, and then as Pharaoh's army tries to come through, it closes and it drowns them and God's people get to safety. Awesome story. One of the best stories in the Bible, if you ask me, to trust God. But I love what God does here with Joshua. It's so much different. And part of it's different because God's people don't have a huge Egyptian army chasing them, but it's also different because God needs them to grow in their faith, because what he's going to do with them in Jericho requires faith. And I love that God doesn't always show up to each of us in the same way all the time. God shows up how we most need him at the time and how he most needs to teach us at the time. So they needed a parting of the Red Sea back with Moses, but now Joshua needs something different. So what God tells Joshua is tell the people carrying the Ark of the Covenant, the people carrying the Ark were the Levites. Remember, that's one of the tribes of Israel, the Levites, the Levi. And so he says, tell the Levites to step out in the water. Now look what happens. The Red Sea just parted, then they stepped out. Now they're having to step out first. Before I'm going to stop this river, you're going to step into it, trusting me. Now what's really cool is the Bible says when their foot touches the Jordan, God doesn't stop it right there. No, the Bible says he actually stops it at a city called Adam that's about 3 or 4 or 5 miles away from where they're crossing. So think about that for a second. If the river stops upstream 4 or 5 miles away, are they going to see an immediate effect when they step out? No, it's just like letting the water out of your bathtub. It just doesn't just go and disappear. It takes a while to gradually goes down. And so the Jordan's going to do the same. If it stopped here, it's going to gradually start going down. But those people are continuing to walk out in faith as that water is getting deeper and deeper. And they're saying, God, I know you're going to do what you said you did because you can't break a promise. So I'm trusting you. And their faith is not in vain. But think about how much faith it took for them to continue walking in that water, trusting God. And then gradually that water subsides and it's all dry. And the rest of the people come walking through and go on through to the other side and start headed to the promised land. But I love the difference here, right? And I think that's a great lesson for us to know, is that maybe there's different times in our lives God's going to show up in different ways, but it's always the way that we need the most and that he needs to teach us the most. So again, Moses' people, they needed a miracle to trust God because truly, they didn't have a lot of faith back then. And now Joshua's people need to grow in their faith so they can go take Jericho without even using a sword. We'll see that in a couple weeks. Anyway, guys, so hey, appreciate you hanging out with me this week. Hope you love Joshua 3 as much as I do. Great story. And I hope you have an awesome weekend. Continue to grow in your faith. We miss you. We love you. We'll see you soon. Peace out.